You are losing the race against time. Not because you're getting older, but because you foolishly believe you will stay the same. You cling to fame, to your body, to praises that no one even remembers anymore. You think you've been betrayed? No, you simply never understood the rules of the game. Stoicism doesn't promise to save you from being forgotten, from wrinkles, or from the hands that once held you and then let go. It teaches you only one thing. If you don't train your mind to embrace loss, the world will crush you without an ounce of mercy. This video isn't for the weak begging for hope. It's a call to those who dare to look into the mirror of reality, who dare to accept the truth that everything they love will vanish, and that only through loss will they find freedom. If you still have courage, keep going. If not, turn back now. The door will close behind you. If you feel the positive energy, don't forget to like this video and share a meaningful comment. Jack once believed he was irreplaceable. At 52, after nearly 3 decades of building a tech company from a garage to a multi-million-dollar enterprise, Jack thought he had etched his name into the history of the industry. He walked into rooms surrounded by respect, firm handshakes, eager eyes waiting for his advice. Every party, every meeting, every conference, Jack was the center. He even thought to himself, even when I retire, they'll still call. They'll still need me. It was a quiet but solid belief he clung to through his peak years. When Jack decided to retire, there was a farewell party filled with flowery speeches. Someone even gave him a gold watch engraved with the words, "An unforgettable legend." Jack left under the glowing sunset of glory, carrying in his heart a deep pride. He had left a legacy. He had become immortal in the minds of others. But just 3 months later, reality came crashing down. The phone calls stopped. The emails, the messages, the casual check-ins faded and then disappeared. Jack tried to stay connected, a message to an old colleague, a coffee invite to an old friend. Sometimes they replied, but the conversations were awkward, weighed down by heavy silences. Once, Jack returned to his old company to drop off a congratulatory gift. The young receptionist, who had never met him before, asked, "Do you have an appointment, sir?" As if he were just another stranger. Jack felt suffocated. He raged silently, "I built this place. I created all of this. How could they forget me so quickly?" The fury seeped into lonely mornings in his sprawling, silent house, into nights spent staring at a silent phone. Jack began to wonder, was his whole life just a joke? A name so easily wiped away? One night, while digging through old books from his business trips, Jack stumbled upon a worn copy of Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. On a yellowed page, he read a cold, cutting line. "Very soon you will have forgotten everything. Very soon everything will have forgotten you. Care only for how you live right now." The words hit him like a cold blade, slicing through the fake pride and exposing a brutal truth. Being remembered was never the goal. The only thing that mattered was how he lived in each moment. The anger melted away, replaced by something heavier, awakening. Jack realized he had wasted so much energy on something he could never control, other people's memories. He could never force anyone to remember him forever. But he could choose to live honorably, authentically, and bravely every day. No audience needed, no spotlight. From that day, Jack quietly but fundamentally changed his life. He went to the local community college and volunteered to tutor struggling students, kids who didn't know who he was and didn't care about his past achievements. To them, he was simply Mr. Jack, a patient man explaining math problems and coding principles. No one applauded him. But when Jack saw a child's eyes light up after understanding a difficult problem, he felt a pure, unshakable joy that no one could ever take from him. Jack also started caring for his aging mother, now battling dementia. She no longer remembered he had been a CEO. Sometimes she couldn't even remember his name. But when he held her frail hand, smiled, and told her stories from the old days, a brief flash of light would appear in her eyes. The light of love, the only thing that truly outlives memory. Slowly, Jack stopped thinking about his lost fame. He stopped counting the times his name was or wasn't mentioned. Instead, he asked himself, how did I live today? What did I do to hold on to my dignity? At night, leaning back in his old armchair, closing his eyes, Jack found a peace no amount of applause or glory could buy. Jack finally understood. They would forget him. very soon, but it didn't matter anymore, because he had lived right, lived fully, and that was the one victory death could never erase. After finding a new peace within his soul, Jack began to notice his body, a realm he had once believed to be invincible. Years spent sitting in boardrooms, flying across continents, eating irregularly, living under relentless pressure, all of it had accumulated into persistent back pain and aching joints that made every morning a battle. But throughout his career, Jack hadn't cared. He believed success would cover everything, that as long as his spirit was strong, his body would follow. Now, with glory faded and praise silenced, Jack faced himself in the mirror, a gray-haired man, shoulders slumped, walking slowly, his eyes losing their sharpness. No admirers, no applause, just the brutal truth. He had abandoned his body, and now it had come to collect its debt. At first, Jack was angry. He grumbled inside. "I worked so hard. I deserve a stronger body than this." But one day, while rereading Seneca's teachings, he stumbled upon a line that struck him silent. "We do not control the body, but we do control how we respond to its pain." It wasn't his body that had betrayed him. It was he who had betrayed his body, through neglect, arrogance, and carelessness. For the first time in years, Jack stopped looking for someone to blame. He began treating his body like an old, loyal friend who had carried him through countless battles. He signed up for a senior yoga class at the local community center, where he was the only one who had ever commanded a corner office. He practiced simple, slow movements, at first barely able to lift his arms through the crackling protests of his joints. But he persisted. There were no illusions of regaining his former physique, no fantasies of getting back in shape. Jack simply respected his new limits and tried a little more each day. Every morning, he rose early, brewed a cup of green tea, and sat on an old wooden chair on his porch, letting the sunlight touch his weathered face. He no longer looked at his body with disappointment, but with deep gratitude. Gratitude for the legs that had carried him down thousands of roads, the hands that had signed countless deals, cradled countless children, stroked his mother's hair countless times. This body, though now frail, was still the truest companion Jack had ever had. When he shared with the poor students he tutored, they would ask, "Mr. Jack, how can you be so patient? Your body's so weak, yet you still come here every day to help us." Jack would simply smile and reply, "Because I no longer expect my body to be what it once was. I only ask it to go one more day with me, one more lesson. And I'm grateful it still does." Years ago, Jack used to run marathons to prove he was stronger and tougher than others. Now, he walked slowly around the park, unnoticed, without medals or trophies. But each step carried a sacred weight he had never understood before. Every step was a triumph over bitterness, a hymn of acceptance. Jack learned a harsh but freeing lesson. You do not own your body. You are merely borrowing it for a short while, and your duty is to care for it with gratitude until the day comes to return it. Every wrinkle, every scar, every crack in your bones is a medal, a testament to a life lived, a life fought for, a life loved. And so Jack no longer feared aging. He learned to walk slowly but proudly, to train clumsily but earnestly. Because he now knew, true dignity doesn't lie in flawless appearances. It lies in how we face decay. Not with complaints, not with rage, but with courage and unconditional love for ourselves. About a year after Jack had embraced his simpler life, on a cold March afternoon, he received a call from the hospital. His mother had passed away. No warning, no drama, just a long sleep she never woke from. Jack sat silently in the empty living room, the phone in his hand feeling as heavy as 1,000 pounds. Even though he had mentally prepared for this moment for months, even though he had reread Epictetus's teachings about death being a natural part of life, he still felt a dull ache rising from somewhere deep inside. It wasn't the death itself that hurt, it was the sudden emptiness. The woman who had cradled him in her arms during his first days, the woman who had called him by the most tender of names, was now nothing but memory. In the first days after the funeral, Jack received many condolences. But like every sadness in life, people's concern quickly faded. A week later, they had returned to their own lives, to their bills and jobs. Jack was left alone, facing the empty rooms, the old belongings of his mother still faintly carrying her familiar scent. Sometimes, in the dead of night, he wondered, did I do enough? Did I love her enough? There was no answer, and Jack knew there didn't need to be one. Because according to Stoic teaching, love is not ownership, nor is it a ledger of debts and dues. True love is the full presence while it lasts, and a peaceful acceptance when it's time to let go. During those lonely days, Jack recalled a core principle he had once read. Love everything as if it were only loaned to you, as if a guest had visited your life, and be ready to give it back when the universe asks. His mother had been such a miraculous guest, and now her visit was complete. Instead of drowning in grief, Jack chose to turn memory into action. He cleaned out his mother's old room, keeping a few small mementos, a faded birthday card, a knitted scarf she had made for him, and donated the rest to poor families in the neighborhood. No ceremony, no speeches, just a quiet sharing, a way to keep love flowing. On Sunday afternoons, Jack would visit a nearby nursing home, spending hours talking with the elderly who had no family left. Once, while reading aloud to a blind old woman, Jack suddenly realized, in that moment he wasn't just offering kindness, he was continuing the love his mother had once given him. Love doesn't die with physical death. It simply changes form, living on through actions, through every breath, every kind glance we send out into the world. Each time he walked out of the nursing home, Jack lifted his head toward the gray sky and smiled to himself. He no longer clung to anyone. He no longer feared the goodbyes yet to come. Because he had finally understood, loss is not injustice, it's the law of the universe. And our only duty is to love fiercely during the precious time we are given. That night, Jack sat by his porch, the cold wind brushing through his silver hair. He closed his eyes, placed a hand over his heart where it still beat steadily, and in the deep silence he finally heard what years of busyness had kept him from hearing. A soft whisper from life itself, love, and then let go with gratitude. After months of accepting loss and living a quieter life, Jack gradually noticed another change unfolding. Clear, irreversible, and harsher than any before. He was aging, not just in the aches in his back or the slowness of his steps, but in the way others looked at him. Once, when Jack entered a room, he felt he owned the air. Now he realized he was easily overlooked, blending into the background. Young people were polite, but no longer eager to hear him speak. Young women smiled politely, but their eyes drifted toward quicker, livelier men. For the first time, Jack understood what it felt like to be left behind by society. A part of him wanted to fight back, to reinvent himself, dress trendier, dye his hair, enroll in rejuvenation programs. He nearly booked an appointment at a famous clinic that promised to restore your youth in 90 days. But one evening, while revisiting his old notes from the discourses by Epictetus, Jack stumbled upon a line he couldn't shake off. Do not seek beauty where time no longer grants it. Seek dignity in how you accept change. He closed the book and sat in deep silence. Jack realized he didn't need to pretend to be young. He didn't need to race against time. He didn't need to cling to an image that no longer belonged to him. Because true beauty doesn't reside in smooth skin or glossy hair. The beauty of a grown man lies in how he faces aging, with courage. Jack changed how he saw himself. He no longer wore clothes trying to make him look younger, but chose clean, simple, dignified outfits. He didn't dye his silver hair. Instead, he trimmed it neatly, letting each strand catch the light as a badge of time. When he walked outside, he no longer tried to impress with appearances, but with calmness, with understanding eyes, with real presence in every conversation. One afternoon, while tutoring a group of students, a young girl named Maria hesitantly said, "Mr. Jack, I really like how you talk. You make me feel safe, like everything's going to be okay." Jack simply smiled and nodded. He didn't need admiration for how he looked. He only needed to leave a quiet mark in the hearts of the young. Steadiness, patience, faith in the enduring value of character. Jack also began noticing other older people around him, those who might be wrestling with the same feeling of invisibility. He would smile at them, share small conversations at the supermarket, in the park, at the library. In their eyes, he saw a glimmer of gratitude, the kind only those who know what it feels like to be overlooked can truly understand. One evening, sitting on a park bench, Jack saw a little girl fumbling with her shoelaces. She was close to tears. No one paid attention. Jack bent down slowly, patiently tying her shoes. She looked up, flashed a radiant smile, and ran off without even saying thank you. Jack didn't need the thanks. He stayed there, his heart quietly full. Being a small, unseen support to life, that was the true beauty of aging. Jack understood. Every wrinkle on his face, every silver strand of hair, every age spot on his hands, they weren't signs of decay. They were medals of honor bestowed by life itself. They told the story of winters he had survived, summers he had loved fiercely, detours he had faced with resilience. And so, Jack learned a truth no school could teach. Dignity does not age, only the body does. And dignity, if nurtured right, only grows more luminous with time. As time passed, Jack grew accustomed to the calm rhythm and deeper meaning of his new life. He no longer rushed after meaningless races, nor felt the need to prove anything to the world. Every day, Jack lived fully with what remained. The students who needed guidance, the old friends in the nursing home, the quiet afternoons on the park bench. But even after learning to accept being forgotten, decay, and separation, Jack couldn't stop new losses from coming, like sudden storms with no warning. One crisp autumn morning, Jack received word that his closest friend, Frank, had died of a stroke. Frank was the one who had stood beside him through their wild younger years, the one he had spent sleepless nights with, dreaming of grand adventures they had once sworn to make real. The news hit, as real deaths always do, without drama, without preparation. A short call from the hospital, a hollow "oh" bursting inside Jack, followed by an emptiness that swallowed him whole. For the first time in many months, Jack felt like a scorched field. He wandered the park aimlessly, his steps heavy like dragging stones. Every coffee shop he passed, every familiar tree he saw, triggered memories of Frank. In the dull ache of grief, Jack wanted to shut down his heart, to deny all emotion, to pretend that the friendship had ended along with death. But one evening, sitting alone in his living room, Jack remembered a critical Stoic lesson he had once read. It is not loss that causes your suffering. It is your clinging to what no longer exists. Frank was gone. That was an undeniable fact. But the friendship, the memories, the lessons, the laughter, all the moments they had shared, still lived inside Jack. They hadn't disappeared. They had simply transformed, flowing quietly through his heart like an underground river. Instead of running from grief, Jack chose to face it the way a Stoic warrior faces fate, with courage and acceptance. He spent a morning writing a letter to Frank, though he knew no one would ever read it. In the letter, Jack thanked him for the lessons, the loyalty, the priceless moments they had shared. When he finished, Jack folded the letter, burned it under the moonlight, and watched the smoke rise into the sky. It wasn't a superstitious ritual. It was a farewell born of gratitude, without blame, without begging. From that day on, whenever Jack thought of Frank, he didn't sink into hopeless sadness. He smiled at the memory of rowing a boat together under the setting sun. He whispered silent thanks for the blunt advice Frank had once given him. And he lived, day by day, carrying a part of Frank in every breath, every kind act, every righteous decision he made. Jack understood, real love doesn't die with the body. It isn't buried in the ground. It continues to live, in actions, in memories, in the values we uphold and pass on. In the end, Jack found peace not by forgetting his lost friend, but by living in a way that honored their bond. He knew that one day he too would leave this world, becoming a memory in someone else's heart. But just like Frank, what mattered wasn't how long he lived. It was the quiet marks he left on the souls of others. And so Jack lived each day not to fight against time or pain, but to nurture love, the one force even death can never touch. Thank you for being here. If you found this video helpful, subscribe, turn on notifications, and like this video. Don't forget to leave a comment so we can spread positivity together.